Story 1. I accidentally knocked over my bottle of 5-hour energy and burst into tears because I had a job I hated so much that it was the only thing I had to look forward to. Story 2. Do tears from pain count? There was a time I attempted to aggressively swat a yellow jacket and ended up hitting myself in the groin. Story 3. My chicken sandwich was grilled instead of fried, but I thought it was fried. I was on my period, got to the car, realized it, and cried my way through it. Story 4. There was a spider living in my driver's side mirror. It would pop out from behind the mirror anytime I got in the car. I commuted to work on the highway, so I worried about the spider getting blown away, but it always stayed tucked behind the mirror. Every day for a few weeks, I was greeted by the spider when I got in my car. One day, I arrived at work and parked. When I got out of the car, the spider popped out from behind the mirror, which it had never done before. By this point, I considered us friends, so I reached out with my finger to wave goodbye. I guess I scared it and it dropped to the ground. I was crushed. I immediately dropped to my knees to try to find the spider to put it back on the mirror, but it was gone. Later that day, I was telling a coworker about the spider and burst into tears when I mentioned I had lost it. Story 5. I wasn't feeling well, and I saw a clip on television about a horse that fell during a race and had to be euthanized. I wept. Story 6. I cried because I had cried for no reason earlier that day, and I was upset that I did not know why when asked. Postpartum hormones affect mental health. Story 7. When I was 8, I suddenly became aware that I would die one day. I started wondering who would show up to my funeral and began writing my will. Baby's first existential crisis. Story 8. I cried yesterday while driving and listening to Pearl Jam's Better Man. I hadn't heard it in so long and forgot how great of a song it was. Story 9. National Football League draft announcement video compilations on YouTube. I am British and I know nothing about the sport, but those moments of the New York Giants tearing up really get me. Story 10. I will never hear the end of it, but once when I was very young, I vomited and was sad about the baked potatoes. I really liked the baked potatoes. Story 11. My mother held up a spoon of something for me to taste. I literally did, but I was examining it before tasting again. She very lightly pressed it against my mouth before I could, and I just started crying. Story 12. I was refilling the Oreo pieces for the McFlurries at work, and I dropped the bag as soon as I opened it. Story 13. I went on hormone medication for a reproductive condition and had intense mood swings at the start about a year ago. I cried over the following. This is not an exhaustive list, just what I remember off the top of my head. It was an interesting month. Assignments, enough said. A couple in a TV advertisement for lawnmowers looking cute and in love. A wholesome clip of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. A news story about a robotics team from a remote area in my state going to the international finals for a competition. I read an article on how the poet Emily Dickinson, often considered a recluse, actually seemed well liked by her community when she was alive. Even though she wasn't very sociable, she liked to bake and would put biscuits on her windowsill for neighborhood children and send pies to her neighbors, even though she didn't interact with them, which is heartwarming and bittersweet. It's sad that this facet of her life is often erased. The fact that Mary Wollstonecraft, a feminist writer who died in the 19th century, is dead. On a similar note, the fact that Anne Lister died also in the 19th century, combined with the fact her wife outlived her and presumably watched her suffer through her final illness, which is upsetting to think about. With those last two, I wasn't reading about them or anything when I got upset. I was just going about my day, making lunch, catching the bus when I thought, wow, it sucks that Anne Lister is dead. My sister was annoyed because I accidentally ate her leftovers. I was struggling to find a job. I made a big mistake and watched Threads, a movie about nuclear destruction, and predictably gave myself nightmares. My nail polish wouldn't dry fast enough. I missed my public speaking teammates from high school. I couldn't decide which friend's house to go to get ready for an event. I felt guilty for picking at my pimples. I don't go to university in the United Kingdom and felt like I was missing out because we do things differently in Australia. For example, it's common to live at home and catch the bus to university and have a job close to home instead of going away to university. Note: I didn't even apply to any universities in the United Kingdom and am perfectly happy with my education, life, and job in Australia. I just randomly got irrationally upset about that one on the way back from grocery shopping with my mum. Story 14. Pregnant at the Georgia Aquarium. I cried during the sea lion show because they were so majestic. When Peaches waved to the crowd, I waved back while continuing to sob. Story 15. When I was very pregnant with my oldest child, I had a meltdown because my husband brought me food from Wendy's instead of McDonald's. Story 16. I cry at almost every marriage proposal I see, even the unromantic ones. I am not sure why they move me to tears. Story 17. 2 days ago, my boyfriend and I were deciding what sides we wanted for dinner. We were grilling burgers. He said fries and I suggested grilled corn. He laughed and said nobody eats corn with burgers. Because I am insane, it somehow hurt my feelings, and I cried about it. Maybe I just love corn. I do not know. Story 18. I've been to Jamaica once about 10 years ago and fell in love with the people and food. We had a Jamaican food truck open near me. The food was so good. The first bite reminded me of Anton Ego's reaction in Ratatouille. But what really sold it for me was the excellent service. It felt like I was right back in Negril, watching the sunset with a plate of jerk chicken, rice and beans, and festival dumplings. All I needed was a ting, and I could have been completely happy. Story 19. I was sick on the couch and asked my husband for a Coca-Cola. He brought it to me and twisted off the cap. I broke down sobbing because it was so kind of him. Story 20. I dropped a dish I was cleaning back into the sink. It did not break or anything. It just made me sad. Story 21. I sometimes get emotional when a game or media is really good or well made in my opinion. I do not know why. It is not something sad, but it usually brings me to the point of almost crying. Story 22. Target had a seasonal Yasso brand pint of peppermint ice cream back in the day. I don't recall the name, but it was released at Christmas time. I went late at night specifically for that ice cream, and they were out of stock. I stood in the aisle and cried. I felt so stupid. I get a pass because I was about 5 months pregnant, but still. Story 23. I was young, maybe around 9. I went mini golfing with the Boy Scouts. At the next Boy Scout meeting, I got a shout out for having the lowest score. I thought they were publicly humiliating me for being the worst. I had forgotten that the lowest score is good in golf. Story 24. Cried over the paper plate commercial when the mother spilled food on her daughter's diorama. I genuinely sobbed. I blamed premenstrual syndrome. Story 25. I broke my nail that was about an inch long. It was during a time when I was experiencing a lot of loss in my life, and I was hanging on by a thread. I guess that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And my then boyfriend, now husband, witnessed a very bizarre breakdown over a broken pinky nail. Story 26. I found out I was not the only person he was cheating on his wife with. It was over a decade ago. I was 18 and naive. Story 27. I saw a comic of Grimace being sad that people were dying from the Grimace birthday shake. He just wanted to celebrate his birthday. Story 28. I know this sounds petty, but someone stole a brand new, never used box of tissues from my office at work. I was so angry I started crying. Story 29. I could not go to the store to buy one of the few things I wanted to eat while I was pregnant because the store was closed. I lost a lot of weight during that pregnancy. Story 30. The bathtub was not draining correctly for 2 weeks. I tried different drain cleaners, used a drain snake, and got a new plunger to try to force whatever was causing the blockage out. It turned out the tub stopper was pushed enough to appear open but was still partially closed, preventing proper drainage. Story 31. As a little kid, I had a fever dream where I had a necklace with my name on it that looked like the old blue and yellow California license plates. When I woke up, I threw a crying fit because I wanted my name necklace. My parents were perplexed. In my defense, I was sick with the flu and had a high fever. Story 32. I was 9 years old when Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob lost his arm. I felt bad for him even though he lost his arm in several episodes and it always grew back. Story 33. Last day of spring break, sometime before middle school. Not sure why the end of a week off upset me. I guess sixth grade was hard. Story 34. Once my ex made up a story about her getting amnesia from an accident. I believed it. I searched for information which made me believe it was even more severe. She acted as if she had short-term memory loss and forgot about me sometimes. I cried over it, thinking my girlfriend did not remember me anymore. I still cannot believe I fell for that. Story 35. My freshly bought, perfect-tasting McDonald's sweet tea spilled in the car because my mom was brake-checked. I sobbed like a baby. I was 8 years old. Story 36. I walked outside into the winter cold rain and started crying because it was still raining for the 5th day in a row, and I hated the cold. I even mumbled to myself that I am an adult and should get my life together. Why am I crying over the weather? 3 months later, I accepted a work transfer to a hot tropical location. Story 37. The dog had to leave the tiger behind while watching a movie because a tiger is not domesticated. But why? He loves the dog. Story 38. My family's direct broadcast satellite in the backyard had to be replaced for an upgrade. I was a little child at the time. Story 39. The dining hall's dishwasher was broken, and they only had plastic utensils. I have no idea why that upset me, but I was under a lot of stress at the time. I think it is humorous now and did then too. Story 40. I cried last night over RuPaul's Drag Race. For those who know the show, it was when Choo Choo made it to the semifinals. Story 41. I spilled my McDonald's coffee on the ground when I got out of my car and screamed, "I wish I was dead." Story 42. I was already upset, and then I saw a photo of a kitten. I cried because I would not be able to personally guarantee it would live a life full of love, happiness, and endless petting. Story 43. Once I was in a Tesco, a UK grocery shop, with a friend after a very bad week at school years ago. I was trying to decide between two kinds of chocolate bars. Everything came to a head, and that was the tipping point for me. I cried over a chocolate bar in Tesco. Story 44. This is very recent. I had a very bad day at work, and I was telling my supervisor. He told me I could take the next day off. I got teary-eyed and almost cried in front of him. Story 45. I was looking forward to smashing up Chips Ahoy cookies and vanilla ice cream after a long day of work, but someone ate the last of the Chips Ahoy. Story 46. I started crying after a girl at work yelled at me for putting cheese under the meat and egg instead of in between. I was having a bad day, and she was constantly rude to me. That was my final straw. Story 47. I was pregnant and wanted extra pickles on my burger. The burger had no pickles, so I cried. I called the restaurant, crying, to say that I had really wanted pickles. They apologized and refunded my burger, which was very kind. I checked the bag and found a whole container full of pickles. I cried for not seeing it earlier, then cried again about calling the restaurant and getting a refund. I called the restaurant to let them know I had found the pickles, and I felt bad for them refunding my burger while I was crying. Story 48. When I was in my first trimester, I cried because nothing tasted good. When I was in my second trimester, I cried because at 22 weeks I couldn't hold down regular water and could only drink flavored sparkling water, which I hated. I also cried because of food that did taste good. Story 49. When I was young, I lost my pen that had accompanied me from grade 4 to grade 10, and I cried even harder than I would over a breakup. Story 51. I was newly pregnant, and a butter commercial came on TV. I have no idea why, but I cried so hard, then laughed until I cried again. I had just taken my first tetrahydrocannabinol gummy and had never smoked or ingested tetrahydrocannabinol before. I was sitting outside at a winery and saw two young birch trees. I remember thinking they looked like siblings and cried my eyes out in public. I was also strangely afraid that I would forget how to walk, but that is another story. Story 51. I was about 11 at my cousin's graduation party, and we were going to leave without getting cake. The only motivation I had for going to the graduation party was the cake, so I cried. Luckily, I managed to get a slice. Story 52. It looks strange, but because I am autistic, I cry when food has a bad texture. It is embarrassing, but I cannot help it. I cried trying avocado pudding yesterday. Story 53. National Geographic. It is not even the sad parts, like an animal meeting its tragic end or anything like that. It is things like seals swimming in the ocean or birds flying. Story 54. Never. There is no reason that is dumb to cry about. Crying is something that needs to be released, not bottled up ever. That is what is wrong with a majority of our nation today. Many of us, somewhere along the line, were told to be tough and not to cry, or not to waste our tears on that person, or that there is no use in crying about it because it will not make things better or change anything. Crying is a normal emotion, and many of us have been shamed for crying. It is never dumb to cry about anything, no matter how big or how small. Let it out. Story 55. My candle wouldn't light. I had a hard day at work and just wanted to light a candle and have a bubble bath. Story 56. When I was 3 or 4, Mom and I were walking down a sidewalk and I saw almost a full hamburger on the ground. Couldn't have been missing more than 2 bites. When she scolded me as I reached for it, I understood why, but I was also terribly sad that no one wanted that burger. It is similar to a scene in a Peanuts special where Charlie Brown pours himself a bowl of cereal, but he is so sad that he just walks away from it. Story 57. Period cravings were severe for Dr. Pepper, and I had no way of getting one that day. I was not about to order one for delivery and was feeling very frustrated. Story 58. I really don't think there is such a thing. Crying helps release stress. The cause is just the last thing our nervous systems can handle before the dam breaks. It's all valid. Story 59. I was pregnant and grocery shopping. The cashier asked if that would be all or if I needed anything else, and I just started crying because being asked to make a decision felt so overwhelming to me in that moment. Story 60. I found out my celebrity crush has a girlfriend who looks nothing like me. He is also 2.5 times my age, but that is not the point. Story 61. I cried today because I missed my mother. She left 12 hours ago. She is coming back on Tuesday. Then I cried because I work all day tomorrow and my dog will be all alone because my mother is gone. Story 62. The first time I saw a commercial for a pill that can lower your risk of passing the human immunodeficiency virus to another person. I am 57, so I even remember when acquired immunodeficiency syndrome was called gay cancer. I remember when Freddie Mercury died. I remember when Arthur Ashe died. I remember when the government did not want to give any funding to human immunodeficiency virus research. We have come so far. When I saw that commercial, I thought of all the people who lost their lives and also all the people who will live full lives. By the way, I am not just tearing up. I fully cried. Story 63. The Eat and Park Christmas commercial when the tree bends down and picks up the star gets me every time. Story 64. 10 years ago, I lived in a townhouse in Toronto, and we never got trick-or-treaters at Halloween because we were not in a residential neighborhood. On Halloween, I was on the phone with my mother when I heard a knock at the door. I looked through the peephole and saw a little boy and his mother. I ran around the house looking for candy, but I did not have any. As I walked back to the door, I heard the little boy say, "How come no one is home?" I instantly broke down into uncontrollable tears. My mother thinks I was homesick or experiencing premenstrual syndrome because I could not stop crying about not having any candy for the trick-or-treater. Story 65. A character in my book planned a murder mystery weekend at the hotel they managed, and only 5 people signed up. He was so excited and had worked so hard, but no one appreciated it. It still makes me emotional. Story 66. I was drunk and watched the Entertainment and Sports Programming Network images of our Century montage, the one with Dream On by Aerosmith. Story 67. Fairly recently, I was playing Battlefield 2, and my internet connection became unstable. I lost a Supreme Republic match as Anakin to a regular assault clanker. Story 68. I'm a sentimental person. Anything that especially involves children or animals. Anything really good or bad is a daily occurrence. Story 69. A short comic about Pluto being excited to see a friend, a satellite, but then crying because it just flew past and left. Story 70. When I was a child, the ending of the cricket in Times Square made me cry. I was happy he finally got to go home, but sad that he left his new friends behind. Story 71. I was high once and ate a Subway sandwich. When I finished it, I cried because my sandwich was gone. Story 72. I wanted ramen and I was young. My mom and her boyfriend were out, and I wanted some, but I couldn't ask because I felt they would say no. So, I cried for about 3 hours, then I got ramen and was happy. Story 73. I have avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, also known as extreme picky eating, and am generally pretty neurodivergent. I accidentally ordered chopped brisket instead of sliced brisket from my favorite barbecue place. I thought they gave me the wrong food, so I politely brought it back. They kindly informed me that was what I ordered. I started internally panicking because it was covered in sauce, and I'm not a huge fan of sauce. The staff member was very nice and asked if I wanted something else. I said yes, that I would like the sliced brisket, please. He regretfully informed me they were now out. I stared at the menu for a minute because I struggle with unexpected changes. I got some shredded chicken and cried while eating it. Story 74. I cried after I saw Pedro Pascal holding hands with Vanessa Kirby at that Comic-Con event. I was so foolish for that. Story 75. My dad had just died. He had been battling cancer for a long time and did not tell anyone he had stopped his treatments and began drinking himself to death. I found out through my aunt when she called to tell me he was getting worse. I lived out of state and could not afford to travel to him. My aunt and a cousin helped me get a ticket to visit. I never really got to say goodbye to him. I was standing in his apartment with my cousin when she called to tell me he had passed away. I spent about an hour in his old apartment, cleaning up before getting a hotel room. The place was damaged by smoke because he was a pack-a-day smoker. The walls were yellow and in very bad condition. After a hot shower in my hotel room, I sat on the floor, slid down the wall, and began sobbing because I was hungry. It all hit me at once and I sobbed so hard that I had a seizure. I am prone to seizures when I get upset. I am still not okay. Story 76. I cried to relieve tension when I could not sleep once. It helped because I managed to fall asleep quickly afterwards. Story 77. I asked my housemate to buy me an egg pie. My fault, I didn't tell her exactly where to buy it, so she bought it at the store inside the mall. However, I only wanted the egg pie a few blocks away from our house. Instead of telling her about it, I cried. Story 78. I got slapped by my friend. He was half joking and not because I was being annoying. I was only teasing him, and he knew I meant nothing by it, but I guess he had enough. I was in my teens midway through school. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.